Well, tubers, tubets, and of course, crazy people. Hey, before we get started, real quick, I just want to give a big shout out and a thank you to all of those folks that have subscribed recently. And I just want you to know that I want to welcome you to the Old Dog family and that you are appreciated, along with those that have been with me for a long, long time. Thank all of you very much. So, in this video, what year, what age is best for you to retire? I can't speak to you, but I can relate my experience and how I came to the decision to retire at 62. I'm also going to explain where I feel that 62 may not be the best option, the so-called early retirement via Social Security. There could be some reasons that if things had been different, I may have retired much later. And that's exactly what I'm going to go through in this video. All right, so without further ado, here comes my goofy little video. Okay, well, like I said in the little intro, I want to discuss why I retired early according to Social Security, nothing else. The earliest you can pull the trigger is at age 62. For me, from being born in 1955, I could have waited till 67, 5 more years, and then I would have been at full retirement and would have received more money. Conventional wisdom was that you should work as long as possible and max it out so that when you retire, you're getting your maximum benefit. That was what all the financial gurus and Social Security was promoting. Anywhere you talk, all they ever talked about is how much you got penalized by taking your Social Security early, because there was this 6% or 8% increase every year, and you could never get that money back. And once you filed, there was no change in your mind. You were locked in, and that was a bad decision. And so that was the conventional wisdom. And I bought into that prior to turning 62. I said, yeah, I'll just wait till I can max it out. That makes sense. I'm listening to all the gurus, right? Well, the same gurus had told me to invest, and you, I suppose, or I'll just keep it to myself. What I heard from people was that if you have money and you want to invest it in something that's really safe and bulletproof and almost guaranteed, in fact, it is guaranteed unless some big disaster comes along, real estate. That and contribute to your 401k. So what did old Paulie Boy do? He invested in real estate. I bought my primary residence and I had other properties. And I contributed faithfully to the 401k. 401k I loved because my employer matched me dollar for dollar. And I thought it was a great bargain. Still do to this day. However, there's always a however, right? What happened? The Great Recession happened. And I've been beat up that I could have handled my money better or differently. Me and 5 million other people were all in the same boat. But if you want to pick on me and call me a loser, as you have in the past, that's fine. I'm a big boy. I leave the comments open. I just thought I'd save you the time, and I'll just go ahead and say, boy, wasn't I a loser. Because I did lose everything, so I can't deny it. However, another issue that was going on in my life was prior to the recession, I had gained my freedom to some degree. I had become divorced from my wife, so I was now a single man. My children had grown up and had gone off their separate ways. We remain friends to this day, so I have a good relationship with my children. I have a friendly relationship with my ex-wife to some degree. We're not really fans of one another, but that's okay. And I was really feeling crappy even before the recession. I was on 5 different medications, statin drugs for cholesterol, blood thinners, a baby aspirin, anxiety medication, and pain medication. That's 5 different pills a day that I was taking. And I was just clinking right along, and I was bored out of my tree. I used to use the phrase a lot, and I'll regurgitate it for this video. Groundhog Day. Every day seemed and felt like the other. I knew that I was going to wake up in the morning. I knew I was going to hop in my car. I was going to drive to work. I was going to do my thing. On the way home, I was going to pick up something to eat, and I would sit in front of the couch, and I would pray there would be something halfway intelligent to watch on TV as I ate my dinner, and that was pretty much my life. Today was just like yesterday, and tomorrow is just going to be like today was, and it was this routine that I just didn't see any real purpose in. But financially, at that time, everything was cool. Then the recession came, and all that conventional wisdom, as well as all of my wealth that I had acquired, not that I was a millionaire or anything, but I had acquired a fair amount of money. I was real estate rich, and I was 401k rich. I didn't exactly checking account rich, but I was doing well from what I had been told to do, or instructed or guided to do, however you want to put it. I absorbed all that information. I believed it. I thought I was on the right path. And then guess what? It all collapsed. Everything went to hell. Me and 5 million other families just went right out the window. Everything that we had earned had just literally been kind of like washed out to sea. Like a big wave came, hit us, grabbed our houses, grabbed the 401ks, and washed it out into the ocean while we stood on the beach and looked at it. The recession. So everything that I had worked for was taken away. Or I let it go, however you want to look at it. Job. No more job, because there was no customers. There was no business. Nobody had any money. Everybody was in a panic. The 401k was history. And what was left of it, this is a mistake, but hindsight being 20/20, but I went ahead and cashed out what was left because I needed some money in my pocket. I didn't know what to do. And I pretty much, from the age, I think it was about 5 years, I just lived day by day. I was renting really inexpensive places. I was working any job that I could get. I thought I was bored before. Well, now I was bored and really broke. And that took an extremely huge mental, emotional, and physical toll on my body, on my brain, on my spiritual life, on my emotions, etc. I was about as down and dejected as you could get. And I just told myself every day, Paul, put one foot in front of the other. We're getting closer. And all of a sudden, that early retirement, that 62, started looking pretty good. And I started to investigate it. I had always thought that I'd retire at 65 or 67, that I would just keep working and storing up money and acquiring more wealth. Well, that's gone. And at that age, I was in my late 50s at the time, I realized that my opportunities to start over again once this recession thing ended and jobs started coming back were really, really narrow. If you look at a funnel, the funnel is really wide at the top. That's when you're in your 20s and your 30s. That funnel just narrows down. And as that funnel narrows down, that is you getting older and your opportunities getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I don't blame them. Employers want to hire someone that's 30 years old and has got, 30 years to give the company. They don't want to hire some dude that's 60 and might keel over tomorrow. And plus, we're grumpy and we're opinionated. We're not the best employees in many cases to hire. And we don't like working for someone that's 27 years old. I could go on and on and on. So I started looking into Social Security. The conventional wisdom had told me to buy real estate and 401k, and blame me or not, that didn't work. Conventional wisdom had told me to stall Social Security for as long as possible. Well, I was no longer a believer in the talking heads on TV. All these guys that knew all this stuff and were yammering on about blah, 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 blah. And it just started to sound like bees buzzing in my head. And these guys with their suits on and four of them in a box on TV all screaming at each other. It just wasn't making sense. So I had a thought. I said, you know what, if I wait till I'm 65 or 67, one thing they never mention is, what if I die? Because I was feeling, as I said earlier, I was feeling super amount of stress. And I think my body hurt and my health was diminished. And I truly believe that in my case, I won't speak for you, so much of your attitude and so much stress or lack of has a direct impact on your physical well-being. I was on 5 different medications. Another conventional wisdom. You go to the doctor, you need to take this for this, that for that. I was taking cholesterol. I was taking blood thinners. I was doing a baby aspirin. I had an anti-anxiety sleep aid, and I had a pain medication because I'd had surgery on my neck where I had vertebrae fused. Wasn't any pain anymore, but I still had the script. And when I popped one of those puppies, it felt pretty good in the morning, so I just continued to take them. Anyway, when am I going to die? What good does it do to wait until I'm 65 or 67 if I kick the bucket at 64? All these increases, what do I get? So I put a pencil to it, and I looked back. I did it today. I'm going to look down at my notes. Back in 2017, I turned 62, and my Social Security benefit was $1,767. I multiplied that by 12, and that's $21,204. Now, if I had waited 1 year, I would have picked up $10 a month, because I asked them at Social Security, what would the increase be? And that would be $120 per month. So how long do I have to live in order for that $120 per month to catch up to the $21,204 that I would have left on the table? Also, in 2017, I was allowed to earn $16,920 before it started to affect my Social Security. For every $2 you made over the 16,000, they would take one away. And if you'd made a lot of money, that was diminishing returns, and it wasn't really making any sense. But I put a pencil to that. If I just worked part-time somewhere, or full-time, at a minimum wage job, let's just not complicate this, Paul. Let's just say that I had a job that I could work, and I could make my $16,920. Let's call it 17 grand. That's a total of $38,000 and change for the year in 2017. That would have transcended to about $3,100 a month using round numbers. The median family income back in 2017 was $5,000, and I would have been making just a hair over 3,000. But I do believe when they calculate the median, and I may be wrong on this, but when they calculate these median incomes, I believe that's for families and possibly two people working. I may be wrong on that, but this is what I'm not wrong about. I do know that since I was single, since the kids were grown, wife was gone, the only person I had to worry about was me, myself, and I. And I know what the prices were back in 2017 to some degree. I would not live like a king. I would not have some sort of luxurious lifestyle. I wouldn't live in a great big house. I wouldn't drive a big fancy car. But you know what? I would have a roof over my head. I would have transportation, and I would have food in my stomach. And once you have those three things, the rest is just a bonus or ego or both. So I thought about that. I said, you know what? I can make this happen on $3,000 a month. And this was before I turned 62. This was when I was about 60, 61. And to put a cherry on top, I made this conscious decision that I'm not going to leave this $21,000 laying on the table. I already knew from previous trips to Asia, 2 trips, one in 2005, one in 2009 to 2010, I went to Thailand. Excuse me. I knew that I was going to retire overseas. I didn't know the Philippines, but I figured Thailand at the time. Turned out, obviously, I'm here in the Philippines. But I knew that money that I was getting, the 1767, from having lived over there, would be more than sufficient to pay for what? A roof over my head, transportation, and food in my stomach, and actually more left over as a bonus or ego. And so it was very, very simple for me to pull the trigger. And what the conventional wisdom at the time was also telling me was, man, you got to take all of these pills. Big Pharma wants everybody to be on at least 6 medications because why not? Let's treat them for this, let's treat them for that. And I had bought into that. So I started to doubt, why am I taking all of these pills? Well, when I filed, I waited till my birthday, February 3rd. I was on the porch at Social Security first thing in the morning. I was second in line. And I went in and I filed. And I said, you know what? I am going to go ahead and work. I'm going to go ahead and keep working. And I'm going to earn as close to that $16,000 that I'm allowed to. And I'm going to park it. And at the time, I had a little condo that I had purchased and was ready to sell. I made a little profit off of it. That's another story. But I already had downsized tremendously. So I did just that. I worked until I earned about that $16,000. And that's when I boarded the plane and came over here to the Philippines. And the money was my safety net, plus some walking around cash when I arrived. Why do I tell you all this? I tell you this because when I filed for Social Security, I was born on February 3rd. I thought I was going to get a check in March, but I did not. Au contraire, mon frere. February 3rd, you have to have 30-day space, a full 30 days from the date of filing. At least this is back in 17. And then after that 30 days passes, you're entitled to your first check. So I filed on February 3rd. And the entire month of February went by and it didn't count because 3 days of the month had already passed. Wasn't a full 30 days. When February 28 or 29 would have been the same. Then I had to wait until March. That's your full 30 days. And then April. was when I received my first Social Security check on the second Wednesday of the month. And then like I said, I received it. I got it in the bank. Everything was cool. I worked a little bit, worked a few more months till I earned that money, knew that I wouldn't get in trouble, and got on the plane. Prior to that, though, remember I said I don't know when I'm going to die? I called Social Security, and I got, what I'm convinced is, a little blue-haired old lady. And I didn't see her, of course, because we were on the phone, but she was older, I could tell, and for some reason I pictured her as having blue hair, and she was just as sweet as could be, and I loved her to death because she called me sweetheart, and I called her darling, and neither one of us were offended. Apparently the pronoun woke thing hadn't hit high gear yet, and her and I were getting along just great by using terms of endearment with total strangers and talking on the phone. And I asked her a question. I said, hey, I got a quick question for you. And darling, and she said, well, what is it, sweetheart? You know, and I said, if I go over to the Philippines, will that affect me receiving my Social Security check? And she goes, oh, baby. She says, you're retired. You worked all your life. You're entitled to this money. If you want to take it and travel the world, Social Security is not going to stop you from going to the Philippines or anywhere else. And I said, oh, okay, great. I just wanted to make sure I didn't have to be in America all the time. No, people do it all the time. They take cruises, they go to Mexico, they live here, they live there. It's your turn, you know. She was really on my side. And I said, I got another question for you if you don't mind. She goes, oh, you can have 100 questions. She worked for the government. She had all day. She said, I said, why do I have to wait and everybody else have to wait that full 30 days before we get our first check? And she goes, oh, sweetheart, that's easy. That's in case you die. You see, Social Security knows the longevity of people is the math is in their favor that they will never have to give you a check at all the longer that you wait. Remember that 20,000, 21,204? How long do you have to work getting an extra 120 a month to get that 21,000 back? I'll let you do the math at home if you're so inclined. Now, why would I not collect at 62? Why would I hang out till 63, 64, or 65? I think these days it's 70 or something like that. That's pretty simple. If my situation was different, and I'm not necessarily talking about the recession, that happened, and I would have had to have dealt with it. But if I had a home life, if I was still married, number one, if I was still raising children, I am a firm believer that you need, as a father, single father or not, you need to see it all the way through to the end. So there was no way I was going to leave my kids until they were adults and had moved out of the house. So if that weren't the situation, if my kids were still 15 or 16 or whatever, I would have just stayed. I would have continued to work. There may be the fact that you like your work. You enjoy it. You get pleasure from it. You weren't stressed out. You weren't emotionally broken up. The recession didn't affect you at all. You had one of those jobs that it didn't touch. Your house, you didn't care what it was worth. You were going to pass it off to the kids anyway. So whether it was worth $1 million or $200, you didn't care. It wasn't your investment. You had other means. So if you're making 75, 80,000 a year, you're happy with your job, you enjoy it, you've got responsibilities, maybe you're just 2 years away from paying off the house, and maybe you're 7 months away from paying off the car, and then that's going to be it, and poof. And once all that's done, then you'll think about retirement. But retirement's not on your radar because you have absolutely no desire to change. Me, I was burnt beyond repair. Take a piece of toast and put it in the toaster, pull it out, and then put a blowtorch on it. That's how burnt out I was. Okay? And what happened? Well, I got that money. I came over here to the Philippines, and a remarkable metamorphosis began. I realized the first thing that I did was now I'd questioned the authority. I had questioned the conventional wisdom and all the talking heads. I knew they were wrong about financing. I knew they were wrong and lying to me about Social Security. I now started questioning the medication. So the first thing I did was I stopped taking the baby aspirin. And in fact, the reason I did is I went to a dermatologist. I had a spot on my face that I wanted her to look at. And she was asking me, what medications do I take? And I told her. And she actually told me, she said, they're doing studies, Paul, where they find that, that baby aspirin deal, that's probably not the best thing for you. In fact, they have studies now that find that actually may be doing more harm than good. And I said, really? And she says, yeah, it's not conclusive, but just thought I'd pass that along. I said, cool. And I just went home and I stopped taking the baby aspirin. I said, what am I doing this for? My blood pressure dropped all by itself because living in the Philippines, I was no longer going through Groundhog Day. I was meeting and greeting new challenges, experiences. Not everything was perfect. Obviously, things go off the tracks. But I felt so much more in control, so much more relaxed. I didn't have the financial burden. I didn't have any drama to speak of. I didn't have any responsibilities except to myself. And that was a unique and new experience. And I wish that upon everyone, that you could have that, either at home or here or wherever. I truly, truly wish that for all of you. Medications. We got rid of that. And then once my blood pressure, I went into the doctor just to get a checkup for something. And she said, well, your blood pressure is great. And I said, really? And she goes, do you take blood pressure medication? And I said, yeah. She says, did you take it today? I said, no, because I always took it at night. And she said, well, you don't really need to take it anymore. She goes, you take it at night? I go, yeah. And she says, well, why don't you put that bottle aside? And we'll check you again later. And so blood pressure was gone. Cholesterol, I chucked that just for the sake of chucking it. It's a statin. I started reading about the statins. The pain medication was a habit-forming pill. And I could not get them refilled over here. And I knew that going in. And so I had like a 90-day supply or something like that. And I was breaking them in half and stretching it out. And I kind of weaned myself off of them. And I found out that once I stopped taking them, nothing really changed. That an ibuprofen every now and then couldn't fix. So I was like, why was I taking all these things? They gave them to me when I had my surgery, but the surgery was long over. I didn't have any pain anymore, but I simply had an addiction. I was taking what are called Loratabs, taking those. And they were just habit forming. And I said, you know what? I don't want to put this in my body anymore. I don't need it. I'm not in pain. The last one was for anti-anxiety and for sleep. Well, as the stress went down, as the blood pressure went down, as the financial burden went down, so did the anxiety. Those pills went out the window. As I speak to you today, this is how many pills I take. Zippity-doo-dah. I've never felt better. In fact, since I've moved here a couple of years ago, I've started up a new diet. where I fast and I eat one meal a day, and I actually dropped 30 pounds over the last 2 years. So I feel much fitter and much finer. I won't go into my whole story about what's going on in my life right now. We spent enough time talking about this. But should you retire at 62, 65, 70? That's your decision. I truly think if it was me and I still had kids under my tutelage, or I had a job that I just loved, I loved the people, I loved what I did, I made great money, what the hell would I leave? I had a solid marriage and we had planned to go, take the motor home to Yosemite with the dog. Far out. We're going to need some gas money. But do the math and take your number as to what you're going to get. The average male lives to be 77 years old. That's the average. Do you know that in Hawaii it's 81 years old? And do you know that in Missouri it's 71 years old? What you might want to take into account is what state you live in. So, if you want to add 10 years to your life, just move to Hawaii. But really the southern states, apparently that's where there's a lot of obesity, there's a lot of type 2 diabetes, nothing wrong with the South. I love the South. They got great food. That's probably the problem. Hawaii, I think, is just a more laid-back kind of Philippines kind of vibe, and people live longer. All right, so that's my little speech. Happy Easter. That's coming up. He is risen. And may you live to be as old as a Hawaiian. I'll see you in the next video.